I want to talk about something absolutely crucial that no one is paying attention to, but that's going to have a massive effect on XRP, the XRP ledger, Ripple, etc. But obviously, nothing is happening now. Things are a little bit quiet. Shout out to all of the tokens that experienced the 10% pump over the last 24 hours or so. Shout out to XRP for being one of those tokens that did the 10%. It's cooled off slightly, but along with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and a whole bunch of coins, some of my micro caps did 40% pumps. So looking very good. Obviously, we're nowhere near actually starting to do all-time highs for these tokens. That's still down the line in the bull market, which is very much still on, by the way. A lot of people thinking that we've seen the top and we're going down, but really, guys, Q4 has just started. We're on day 3 now of October, and the only way is up. Well, unless something drastic happens, we get a macro event that drives everything back down again, or, you know, they decide to liquidate a whole bunch of people when the longs get too enthusiastic. But generally speaking, the breakout is imminent. A lot of chart analysts are telling us this. A lot of indicators are flashing. Time for a massive pump, and XRP is going to benefit massively from that. Now, back to the thing I was going to talk about. I saw an article yesterday about what's happening in India. If you guys remember, I made that video where I showed you crypto adoption in the world, across the world, right? And India, it was a clean sweep for India in terms of retail, in terms of DeFi, in terms of absolutely everything. When it comes to crypto adoption, India is the #1 country in the world in pretty much every single category that you look at, right? So it's a crucial country. And when you think about it, in the last few years, the Indian government hasn't actually been particularly friendly with crypto. So this is in spite of the country's somewhat negative stance towards crypto. They've been able to still adopt crypto at these massive amounts. Now, we've seen recently some of the positive things that the government of India are saying about crypto. They're appointing different people, looking at legislation, looking at regulations, etc., which is what's happening now. The government in India is starting to clamp down on the ways that the Indian population have been able to access crypto, and has put them as #1 in terms of crypto adoption. And that's from external organizations that are not registered in India, either because they're not looking to register in India, or they are unable to register in India because of the laws and regulatory climate in India. But the government is now going after these organizations and clamping down on it, blocking things, blah, 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 blah. And what's going to happen now is it's going to limit the access of cryptocurrencies to the everyday person in that country. And what's going to happen is a lot of people are going to flee to the few that are registered, right? This is where compliance comes in. This is where regulations comes in. And this is where the XRP ledger is going to absolutely shine. Now, a lot of people have been talking about how this compliance upgrade, this institutional facing part of the XRP ledger that sort of accommodates legislation, local jurisdictions, and local laws, customizable to like the regulatory environment of the local jurisdiction where it's being used. So like the XRP ledger will be something different in the United Kingdom, it'd be something different in India, it'd be something different in China, something different in the United States. It's now built in with the customizable dials to dial the compliance level, the KYC level, some of the pre-approved addresses, and so on and so forth. Now, a lot of these other blockchains don't have this inbuilt. They have to reach out to some sort of third party. They have to do some sort of extra KYC on top of the stuff that they have. It's going to slow them down. It's going to make them unqualified or disqualified in many of these countries that are going to be clamping down. And India is certainly an example of what I believe is going to happen across many, many countries. So while all these other tokens are enjoying, for instance, the status of XRP, or a status that Ripple and the XRP ledger has fought for in the United States, for instance, with the not a securities legal clarity that it basically won on behalf of all the other cryptos in the United States, the infrastructure level stuff, the tech stuff in the background, the upgrades to the ledger, the foresight of Ripple as a company as well to make this a thing and make it institutional facing, that superpower that the XRP ledger has is going to put it ahead of the other blockchains in these countries. And we're going to see a flight to XRP when this happens. Institutions are already building, say, on, I don't know, Avalanche or Solana or Ethereum. If they find themselves in India and those tokens suddenly become unregistered, or, you know, the institutions they're building with or partnering with suddenly become banned, blocked, or regulated by the government, while those are scrambling to become, you know, compliant, the XRP ledger arrives already compliant, you know, dialed quickly, suddenly it's compliant to the regulations of the land. We're going to see an influx of all of that adoption into the XRP ledger, especially now when it's extremely easy to port things that exist on other platforms on Ethereum EVMs onto the sidechain EVM of XRPs, or in partnership with things like Flare and other tokens that are building on top of the XRP ledger, or in collaboration with the XRP ledger. And when tokenization hits the ground and the government gets involved with that as well in regulating that, again, the XRP ledger is going to shine as the ledger that's ready to take on tokenization from India and other countries that basically behave in the same way. So that's a lot of stuff that's happening in the background that we might not be paying attention to because we're currently distracted by things like the government shutdown in the United States, the SEC's decision, ETFs, blah, blah, blah. The price going up, the whales and market makers are liquidating people here and there. And we're so focused on that we're not seeing the whole thing, that is all the stars aligning, right? I'll tell you who sees the stars aligning, ironically, are some of the haters of the XRP ledger and XRP generally, or the whole concept of XRP and Ripple and all that sort of stuff. Some of the Bitcoin maxis can actually see this starting to happen, and they are warning everybody else. Again, if you remember that post that I featured in a video where some guy says, oh, you know, the XRP is the new world order token, and can you see it's got identity and compliance and financial domination, it's taken over your finances, your payment methods. What we see as a coming together, an aligning of the stars of the technologies, that things that Ripple and engineers on the XRP ledger have worked on for years and they've talked about for years, and holders have been hoping about for years, sitting back waiting for that pump and passive income and wealth transfer. Other people who are haters or naysayers are seen as government sponsored new world order stuff. This stuff is going to take over the world, take your freedoms away, blah blah blah. It's amazing how you can perceive the same thing from completely different angles. So whether or not you're an XRP lover and you're happy about this, you're anticipating the day that this happens and all the stars align and it takes your portfolio to the moon, or you're a hater, oh, you know, this is taking us over, neither group can deny that there is something happening, and it's something absolutely massive. Anyway, not financial advice, do your own research. Things are quiet now. The US government is shut down, no reports, no economic data, no speculations, no economic whatever. So this might be the perfect environment, the peace and quiet we need for actual fundamentals to make a big difference in the price. So, you know, if you take away the big waves and put a boat on a more quiet sailing ocean, then you can feel the slight bumps better, the smaller waves, the smaller bumps, something like that. Rubbish analogy, but you know what I mean. I'll see you in the next one.